Whether you consider yourself an expert podcaster or someone curious about the medium who might want to explore its value, we can all use a bit of advice, refreshers, and useful tidbits. This episode of Before, Behind, and Between shares exactly such advice. Because as we near the end of the 2022 calendar year, this is a good time to reflect on how we might want to change or improve our podcasts in 2023, or even start a new podcast. I hope you find this episode useful.
Podcast starts now.
Even the best, most compelling podcasts out there have room for improvement. In fact, there's always a way to make your podcast better: how it sounds, how it's received by the listener, how it makes an impact. I've flushed out many tips in my book, Shameless Plug Alert, called Podcasting Explained, as well as its accompaniment, Podcasting the Companion Handbook. I share tips and repost them when I get them from others on social media. Heck, reminding ourselves of how to be better is useful, and for those who are new, it's usually critical and instructive. The first thing I remind clients is the personal nature of podcasts. You're impacting one listener at a time. Podcasts, by virtue of how they're consumed, are a more intimate medium. On radio, broadcasters speak broadly to a lot of people at once, as in, "Okay, folks." With podcasts, you want to speak and to phrase your language in the singular, as in I, and speaking to you. Keep your delivery consistent with the personal, more intimate nature of the medium. Another bit of sound advice is to simply be authentic. Maintain that authenticity as much as humanly possible. As humans, we err when we do things. We make typos, we clear our throats when speaking, we occasionally make an and ah sound during or between our sentences. Used sparingly, these human characteristics reinforce the authenticity of the podcast, and therefore the listenability and potential impact the program has. Also, don't try to sound like a 1950s radio announcer or a 1960s game show host. As much as possible, just try and sound like you. Speaking of authenticity, try to resist the urge to over-prepare by typing out every single word in your script. You'll come across as sounding as though you're reading, which is what you'll end up doing. A rough draft is often better. True, there are some people who thrive with verbatim scripts and have an innate talent to ad-lib and sound natural. If you're one of these people, well, you're lucky, because most reading a script come across like they're reading a script. You want to sound natural and normal in your regular way of speaking. Authenticity is key. Use your words. That's another tip I share with people all the time. This essentially speaks to the point that podcasting is an audible, not visual medium, notwithstanding video podcasts, which is a topic in another episode. When referencing something, such as a book or record album you might have in your studio, do your best to verbally paint the picture for the listener. Remember, they can't see it, and it's your voice that makes that connection in the listener's mind. And the last tip I'll share in this episode focuses on transcripts. Transcripts are a verbatim, that is, word-for-word readable version of your podcast. Not only do transcripts make it easier to search words and topics in your archive of episodes, transcripts help broaden your listener base by enhancing accessibility and reaching an audience with low or no hearing. That's right, they listen to podcasts as well, and transcripts represent that make or break for this population of the market. Another cool plus about transcripts is that they can serve as a basis of putting your podcast into, let's say, a book, with the audio already transcribed for print. Many podcast companies offer transcription services, and the fact is, transcription can be free, as it is with YouTube. And with more and more jurisdictions requiring transcription in some form, we'll find more and more options at our immediate disposal. So there's my packet of helpful tips for the aspiring and already expert podcaster. You've been listening to Before, Behind, and Between, a podcast of Henley Point Productions, which is available on all major podcast platforms and streaming apps, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Amazon Music. Visit henleypoint.ca or stephenchristiansen.ca for more information as well as archived episodes of this program. I'm your host, Stephen Christiansen. Thanks for listening.
A production of Stephen Christensen. Podcast complete.